John Baker, would you do us the honor of the invocation, please?
Stand, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, let us thank you for this day and this beautiful weather and the coolness and the rain that has come to make everything grow and guide and direct us that we might do your work, and forgive us of our many sins, and bless this body and give each and every one here traveling grace as they leave this meeting, and give us the strength to do your will and serve our people to the best of our abilities, and we'll give you all the praise and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Roll call.
Bill Anglin?
Here.
Bill John Baker?
Here.
Jack Baker?
Here.
Harley Buzzard?
Here.
Julia Coates?
Here.
Bradley Cobb?
Honey.
Joe Crittenden?
Here.
Jody Fishinghawk?
Here.
Meredith Braley?
Here.
Janelle Fulbright?
Here.
John Garvin? Chuck Hoskin Jr.?
Here.
Tina Glory Jordan?
Present.
Curtis Snell?
Here.
Chris Soap?
Here.
David Thornton?
Present.
Eric Allen Watts?
Honey. We have a quorum. Next order of business is approval of the July 14 regular session minutes.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. All in favor, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes stand approved as written. Next order of business, State of the Nation, Principal Chief Chad Smith.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to appear in front of you, Cherokee people, on this August 11th, 2008 for the State of the Cherokee Nation. I'd like to begin my report by remembering our fellow Cherokee citizens who have passed from this life this last month. Anna Joyce Phillips is a beloved friend and former receptionist for our administration. She touched the lives of many who had the privilege to know her, and for a number of years when you walked in the main complex, there to your left, you saw Anna. Sweet. If there's a word for statesman in the female gender, it would be her. She was a gentlewoman, a stateswoman. A great example of our elders. George Underwood, a citizen who served in World War II and both in 1979 and the 1990 groups that established the modern Cherokee Constitution. He passed, and he was a practicing attorney until his last breath. I'm sure there's others. Do any of the council have people they'd like to share with us that passed this last month? Yes, sir.
Two young men, David Hale and James Calico, both young Cherokees and great losses.
If you will, at this time, excuse me. If you will, yes, David.
Where's a gentleman by the name of George Washington Fields? Was a veteran. He lost a leg at the Battle of the Bulge. And I don't remember just exactly how old he was. He was in his 80s. Okay. Want him remembered, though.
There's no others at this time. Let's take a moment of silence. In honoring our veterans tonight, we're honoring 5 tonight. We start with 3 from the same family, the Sanders family. Alice, Harvey, and Lorraine are all siblings. All are the children of Edward Sanders and Ellie Sixkiller Sanders from the Dwight Mission community north of Sallisaw. Alice Sanders Singleton was born in 1922. I guess that's not gentlemanly, is it, to report their birthday? She attended Fields Chapel, Dwight Mission, Sallisaw High School, and Sequoia Indian School, graduating in 31, I believe. No, that wouldn't be right. 41. 41, excuse me. Alice enlisted in the Women's Army Corps in 1942 and received basic training in Iowa. She was sent to Louisville, Kentucky, and entered her service as a corporal at Scott Field Air Base in Illinois in 1945. While stationed at Scott Air Force Base, she met Joseph Singleton, a sergeant in the United States Air Corps. They married and moved to Princeton, West Virginia. And she was very involved in her church work, youth groups, and often speaks about growing up in Indian country. Harvey Buck Sanders was born in 1928. He attended grade school in Fields Chapel, Dwight Mission and Sequoia Indian School, graduating in 1947. Buck joined the United States Marine Corps soon after graduating and receiving basic training at Camp Pendleton in California. He was sent to Asia and fought in the Korean War. He was awarded the Silver Star and 2 Purple Hearts for injuries sustained in action. Later, he also saw combat in Vietnam. When he returned to the United States, he was a recruiter. After 20 years, he retired with the rank of sergeant, and he currently lives in Alabama with his wife, Doris. Lorene Dolly Ferris, born in 1924, attended Fields Chapel, Dwight Mission, Sallisaw High School, and graduated from Sequoia Indian School in 1942. After graduation, she went to nursing school in Washington, D.C. In 1943, she was inducted into the Cadet Nursing Corps in Washington, D.C. and served in Jackson, Mississippi. Later, Dolly enrolled in Washington University, earning a bachelor's and master's degree in nursing. Going on to receive a doctorate in education administration, she became a full professor at Florida International University. Dolly was one of 5 Indian nurses that founded the American Indian Nurses Association. She served in the Cultural Diversity and the Council of Affirmative Action for the American Nurses Association. In 1994, Dolly and her husband, Charles Ferris, retired to Sallisaw, where they gave back to their community by helping improve the Dwight Mission Cemetery. She's also a member of the Sequoia County Historical Association. Dolly's husband, Charles Edward Ferris, was born in 1922 in Price's Chapel community north of Sallisaw. His parents were John Oliver and Mary Griffin Ferris. In 1943, enlisted in the Army Air Corps and was a radio operator mechanic. He served in the American Theater, Puerto Rico, and South America, and was discharged at the rank of sergeant in 1946. He became a professor of social work and a member of the National Association of Social Workers. He and Dolly authored numerous articles on the American Indian child and family. Charles received his doctorate in social work at the Catholic University of Washington, D.C. He and his wife returned to Sallisaw community in their retirement. So would you come forward and accept these tokens of our great appreciation? I'll have to bring you the ribbons. Would you turn this way? Could you say a few words? No, you can say anything you want to. Charles, would you like that word? Anything to say?
Well, it's an honor. It's a privilege. I've always been proud of my Cherokee heritage, and I'm delighted to receive these awards from the tribe.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I'm really pleased and didn't really expect it, but we are from a patriotic family. 2 brothers killed in World War II. My brother in Albuquerque, he has an award here, Harvey. He didn't want to come. He's never talked about it, but he's also a very good Cherokee warrior. He spent quite a bit of time at Sequoia Indian School. I don't really know how much he learned about life there, but We all appreciated being there. It was a great experience for all of us. 4 of us were there at the same time. And thank you very much.
Casey?
I'd just like to thank the council and everyone for the awards for my aunt and uncle. And thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Mitch Sisko was born and raised in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. He's the son of Terry and Connie Sisko, 1999 graduate of Tahlequah High School. Mitch's wife, Ashley, is also from Tahlequah. Mitch's military service began in 2002, where he enlisted in the Oklahoma National Guard. He's currently a staff sergeant in 138th Civil Engineering Squadron, where his primary duties are the operation of heavy equipment and placement of demolition charges. Mitch has been deployed 3 times overseas in support of Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, including a 5-month tour in Baghdad last year, where he volunteered to serve in the critical role of anti-terrorism force protection. Mitch was deployed as part of the Operation Jumpstart in 2006 to guard our border with Mexico. During his military career, Mitch has received numerous awards and decorations, but he's most proud of his selection as Worker of the Year for 2007. This is an award that was voted on by other enlisted members. Mitch's military travels have taken him to over 25 countries in the last 3 years. Mitch is proud of his Cherokee heritage and views each trip as another opportunity to serve as an ambassador of the Cherokee Nation. Mitch currently works for the Cherokee Nation Roads Department and is currently scheduled for another deployment to Iraq this year. Mitch, see here? So thank you very much. We'll deliver that to him. So we'll continue with our program. In the last month, we've had several things to report. The Cherokee Casino Resort has reached a new height as the most upper beam in the casino's 19-story luxury hotel is now in place. And so Curtis Snell and I have a story, and we have a different version of that story, but it was called the topping out ceremony. The Iroquois and the Mohawks have this tradition. When they hit the highest point of the steel erection, they put a beam in place, and it has this cedar tree on it, and oftentimes the flags of the United States and the local government. Well, Curtis and I were 2 of those iron workers who got to put the last beam in place and be part of that topping out ceremony. And so we were on the 19th story together, hanging iron. And we've got a great picture, and we're standing on top of the beam, 19 stories up. He has his arm around me, and I don't know if he's trying to keep me on the building or push me off. But the lesson there to be learned, if you fall forward, it's 19 floors. If you fall backwards, it's only 3. So we have 2 other legal updates. First, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit unanimously dismissed a case against the Cherokee Nation in the case of Van versus Kepthorne, a case brought by descendants of freedmen asserting a federal right to be a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. The case has different tiers to it. The Cherokee Nation was dismissed as a party, but under a civil rights exception, it allowed officials of the Cherokee Nation to be named as proxies for the government to avoid the issue of sovereign immunity. So the case has been remanded to district court, and the proceedings will continue on other procedural grounds and possibly for a disposition on the merits sometime in the future. Also, the area office or the district office, sometimes called the regional office of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, reconsidered an issue of whether to take 76 acres in trust for the United Kituwa Band here in Tahlequah. The Bureau rejected taking that land in trust for the second time on the principal reason that it's within the jurisdiction of the Cherokee Nation. No other tribe can take land in trust without our consent. We're very pleased with that 11-page opinion. But I'm sure it will lead to additional litigation by involving the Bureau of Indian Affairs. In announcements, the Youth Council spends time giving back to the community and recently spent time working on some bleachers at Westville schools. Apparently, they did such good work that it saved the construction contractor whole days of billable work. Please join us tomorrow as we celebrate at the Supreme Court building downtown, in which we turn dirt symbolically to start the restoration of this historic property, this historic building. The Supreme Court building is the oldest public building in now Oklahoma, built in 1844. It is also part of the Cherokee Nation's History on Main Street project coordinated by our Cultural Tourism Group. It will take place at 11:15 tomorrow at the Supreme Court building. Sometimes we don't stop and realize the great symbols, the great monuments we have about us. And as our Supreme Court building evidences one of two great passions of the Cherokee people, it evidences that our first building that we ever built after the infamous and harsh Trail of Tears was a building dedicated to law and order to our courts, even after a time when the federal courts were our friend and the United States administration abandoned us in that infamous Trail of Tears. So if there's one signal, one beacon, one characterization of our long history, I think it is that Supreme Court building. And so we're all very delighted to see it being renovated again. For the Cherokee holiday, it starts on August 28th, of Thursday, with the State of Sequoia Commission History Conference at the NSU campus and a performance by the National Cherokee Youth Choir at Crescent Valley Church. So Thursday day, we kick off with the symposium. Thursday night, we kick off with our youth choir concert. On Friday, our arts and crafts show starts, and then a full day on Saturday with the holiday run, parade, State of the Nation, events at the complex, the Heritage Center, and the powwow grounds. Also, football season starts on Friday night with Sequoia playing here on the campus. So it's one event-packed weekend. And as one of our honorary guests, Phil Fontaine is the chairman of, or actually they call him chief, of the Assembly of First Nations of Canada. He is the counterpart to the head of the National Congress of American Indians. He will be here, and when we had the occasion to visit with him in Canada, the Assembly of First Nations of Canadian Tribes uniformly, without hesitation, embraced and endorsed a resolution to support us in defending our sovereignty and the freedmen issue. I'm sure there's other announcements, and I'm sure Councilman Watts has an announcement about hog meat, and that's always an announcement that grabs people's attention, and they register that on their calendars. So without making that announcement, I will thank you for attention. And Madam Speaker, tonight on the agenda there's an issue about override of a veto. If you will grant me the opportunity to address the council before that's addressed, I would appreciate that. Sure. Are you? All right. Okay. I'll hold you to that. Thank you.
The next order of business is action of unfinished business, which relates to an amendment to the election code covering the section on districts of the Cherokee Nation. Last month, we enacted this amendment covering a requirement of the 2003 Constitution to establish 15 seats of reasonably equal representation. The council spent many hours and drew different maps and decided on one, unanimously decided on one, which establishes 15 separate districts with one council person per district. The principal chief has vetoed that amendment on 3 bases, and I won't go into those, Chief. I'll allow you to do that because I might prejudice a little bit. But tonight our responsibility as a council is to decide whether to override the veto, which means that the legislation stands as written and becomes law, or the tribal council will vote to support the veto, which means the legislation then will be redrafted. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to either override or approve, and then a second, and then we'll open the floor for discussion. And Chief Smith, is 5 minutes long enough? I'll establish 5 minutes for you and each council person that wants to deliberate on this. Is that enough
With all
time?
due respect, I have some pages, and I can't say this is going to take less or more than 5 minutes, but I will say this. This is an issue of tremendous historical importance, and in that I do respect the order of the council. I don't know that 5 minutes will do, creating a limit to 5 minutes will do justice to this issue.
We'll establish 10 minutes, not only for you, but for each council person here to deliberate this issue. But at this point, I'll entertain a motion. Ms. Count Watts?
I moved to override the chief's veto.
Second.
Moved in second. Now we'll open the floor for discussion. Chief Smith, would you like to go first? 10 minutes worth?
I'd like to take the opportunity to address the council. But this item, a vote to override my veto of the districting plan. As you're aware, the main reason for my veto is that the proposed districts are not constitutional. The key question that the council must answer tonight is a simple math quiz. Do you think 160 is reasonably equal to 100? The Constitution reads, the council shall establish representative districts within the boundaries of the Cherokee Nation. 15 of these seats shall be apportioned to afford a reasonably equal division of citizenship among the districts. The council has chosen its prerogative to propose a plan with 15 districts. However, the plan does not produce a reasonably equal division of citizens among the districts. In fact, we have had an advisory opinion by the district court that 15 districts are not required. Within one district under the council's plan, District 15, would represent approximately 60% more citizens than another district, District 8. It seems unlikely that the proposed districts are the fairest possible districts to our Cherokee citizens. In fact, only 6 of the 15 proposed districts even come within 10% of the number of the citizens required for a truly representative district. In a 1983 decision of the United States Supreme Court, it ruled that districts in which the populations were less than 10% variance from the truly representative districts were constitutional. 9 of the 15 districts are more than 10% off the truly equal number. It seems quite likely that the Cherokee Nation courts would follow the Supreme Court and find the current proposal invalid under our Constitution. Since the next Cherokee election is still full 3 years away, the council could take time to craft a districting plan in which the districts are more equally represented. The council could come back with a proposal for another 15 districts, but also encourage the council to explore other options. What we have here is the opportunity to shape how our government works for the coming years, for decades to come. We can decide to create a fragmented map of the Cherokee Nation in which council members would represent only a small number of Cherokees, or we can decide to create a district map that unites Cherokees and encourages a spirit of God-doogie among our council. Not long ago, the Cherokee Nation elected all of our council members from one single district, and council members then had a responsibility for looking out for the good in the entire nation, not only those living, but those who have yet to come. While I don't propose the council go back to a single district, I do encourage the council to consider other district maps that would allow council members to work together to serve larger communities within the Cherokee Nation rather than creating 15 small districts. And I have a map behind me, and perhaps you could bring it forward and show those maps. There's other options. Certainly, the Constitution does not require 15 districts, and just requires 15 districts be apportioned equally, the seats be apportioned equally among the districts, however many districts there are. In fact, Judge District Court, Cherokee Nation District Court John Cripps has ruled the Constitution does not require 15 districts. Larger geographical districts with multiple seats mirrors the system that the Cherokee Nation had in past and even today. For instance, many districts have 2 representatives who work well together and have a common interest in improving the area. The system seems to work. It is clear to those of us outside the council that council members who represent the same area often work together and are able to accomplish good things not just for their district but also the entire Cherokee Nation. We see Meredith Fraley and Chris Soap working together. We see Buell Anglin and Brad Cobb working together. We see Joe and Crittenden and Jody Fishinghawk working together. Tina Jordan and Bill John Baker working together. Jack Baker and Julia Coates working together to represent at-large Cherokees. David Thornton and Janelle Fulbright working together, as does Curtis Snell and Harley Buzzard. The council is wise to examine and change the existing districts to conform to our constitutional mandates, but this plan is not constitutional. Why would we choose to change a plan to smaller, separate districts that does not inspire cooperativeness, teamwork, and service to the Cherokee Nation? Historically, we had larger districts tied together by communities of interest. And we have this map you see in front of us is our historical maps of the Cherokee Nation. The Cowiskey District, Saline District, the Going Snake District. And those were organized by community of interest. There were 9 at the time. We can devise a map that takes into account our history, our culture, and our uniqueness as Cherokee communities rather than adopting a foreign concept like the 15 district plans. Additionally, the council has not considered the Cherokee people in the communities and their input in drafting this proposal. The final proposal was tweaked just before the last council meeting. In contrast, the last time the Cherokee Nation made major changes to the election law, the council undertook lengthy series of meetings to educate their citizens. This time, when citizen polling places, voting districts, and even their representation in the council may change, they have not been consulted in this process. I don't believe there's been one community meeting where this issue has been raised. By sustaining the veto tonight, the council can move forward and consider other options and give the Cherokees a voice in the process. A map of 3 districts, 5 seats each, would meet the constitutional mandates and create an environment that would allow council members to work together to serve the communities. So you could have 3 districts as this. And if you look at those districts, the numbers are almost identical. It creates communities of interest and combines communities of districts into 3 districts. That should be considered with other options. The population figures in this district only vary by 1.5% of equality with the others. With 3 districts, we'd have 5 councilmen for each district, 5 seats. Another option would be 5 districts of 3 seats. In this example, the population figures are within 9% of being equal. This one also has the ability to create certainty as to what district and precinct lines fall. This particular map would provide that would meet the 10% rule and provide a reasonably equal division of citizenship among all the districts. Basically, we've visited to some degree, but this is the sort of the linchpin of the discussion tonight. The numbers just don't add up. As the map stands, District 15 District 15 represents 160 citizens for every 100 citizens that District 8 represents. It's very obvious that 160 is not reasonably equal to 100. So I ask the council to consider sustaining the veto, allowing us to come back in a collaborative mode and try to come up with a design that lends itself to the national interest, not only for this generation, but for generations to come, while at the same time balancing the interests of colloquial and local interests. Thank you very much, Speaker.
You had a minute left.
I'll reserve that minute now.
Mr. Soap.
Yes, I just wanted to say, Speaker Crowley, that I won't be supporting the action to override the veto because I do not believe that that we need to take action as quickly as it's been proposed in some various discussions. And the reason why is that I don't feel that I can in full confidence vote to amend or to pass the legislation that amends this representative districts. And the main reason is because I feel overall that there is a reduction in the representation for a majority of the Cherokee voters that are within the boundaries of the Cherokee Nation. Initially, when we started these conversations, a lot of conversation was tied around making it a level playing field. We wanted one man, one vote scenario. And it was talked about in a sense that it was advantageous for somebody from Mays County, for example, that they would be represented by 2 council persons. And so as I thought about it for a long time, it's interesting to me that in our attempt to level the playing field, what we're actually doing is reducing the representation for a majority of the citizenry that lies within the nation's boundaries. And so that's very important to me that we at least have a voice for those that do not wish to have a reduction in the representation. I think that there's an opportunity for us here to provide more representation for those individuals in the districts that were talked about, and I won't name them here, but you can look at the old maps and see which districts had were kind of underrepresented, you could say. And so if you look at the new proposed districting, there's only a few people that it would change their representation in a positive way. And take Councilor Hoskins' district, for example. This legislation doesn't benefit the citizenry in his area in total as much as it does take away representation for other districts. It doesn't provide any advantages for persons in other counties where there was only one counselor for that district. What it does do, it does reduce the representation for a number of counties that you can see that whether they've been divided east to west or north to south or by bodies of water, now everybody is on a level playing field, but is that the most advantageous system that we could offer the Cherokee people? I don't believe it is, and I think that we have a representation from the at-large voters that will still have that representation of having more than one representative. So I see this as something that I can't in full confidence support. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Thornton?
Yes. I'd like to speak to this as representing the Cherokee Nation. I'm for this override. I don't think that boundaries make any difference inside the Cherokee Nation. Since I've been a counselor for the last 8 years, I've represented District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, District 5, District 6, and District 7, and people at large. I've represented all these people as a council person, trying to help them, and trying to help them with programs. And so a certain district, a certain boundary doesn't really, handcuff me to helping people. And I'm still in the district that I'm supposed to be in over here on this map. I'm still going to be helping people in eastern Sequoyah County, in Adair County, in Cherokee County, Muskogee County. It won't make any difference. But as far as running, it might allow someone over at Gore or up in, I don't know, different areas in this district to run that hadn't run before and probably would like to run. But that's just the way I feel about it, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Ms. Fishing Hawk?
Yes, I'd like to read a statement that addresses the veto letter we was sent, please. This act is a constitutional mandate on us 17 legislators of the Cherokee Nation. All 17 tribal council members have contributed, as well as significant input by the executive branch. The chief indicated in his veto message he had not had a chance to talk to the council about the districts. I want the public to know his staff was in attendance at every monthly meeting held over the past year. We all understand the words in the Constitution that say reasonable equal division are subjective terms, and open to interpretation is the word reasonable. It seems apparent to me that he may believe the other branches of the government lack the wisdom to interpret the word reasonable and feel the need to interpret it for us. Instead of doing what the executive branch thinks is right, let's do what we know is right for the people we represent. No, not all is within 10% of the optimal number. There is a reason for this variance. We wanted continuity of communities. We looked at county lines, communities, major roads, and highways. Yes, we could do a map with a 10% variance, or even a 5, or even a 3%, but would it be best for the people? We were more worried about substance than procedure, which is where I think I and the chief differ. He compared the largest district to the smallest district. That is where some of the misunderstanding lie. By his reasoning, our 10% variance is 20%, and that is wrong. In one paragraph of his veto message, he compares the districts to the optimal number, which is what this body focused our efforts on. Then in the following paragraph, he compared the two extremes to each other, throwing out the target or optimal number altogether. He then used the result as merely political rhetoric for a shock value in the media. It's a great soundbite, and it makes for a dramatic reading, but that does not mean it's right. He refers to the U.S. Supreme Court of Brown versus Thompson. Is he assuming to know what our Supreme Court will say? He is basing the statement on his presumption of how our courts will interpret the word reasonable. When he addressed the counselors not having to run against each other, he says, and I quote, "This is not a likely coincidence." I say that is wrong, and there's not been enough attention paid to the maps, counties, and residents of the elected officials. We would have had to gerrymander the districts to run against each other, and not gerrymander them for Joe and me to run against each other. Curtis lives in the northern part of Delaware County. Harley lives in the southern part of Delaware County. Try to make those two run against each other. You would have to gerrymander it to do so. Janelle lives towards Arkansas, and Thornton lives in Diane. Please, somebody for me, divide Sequoyah along a major highway or waterway so that these two will have to face each other. We divided Mays County along the river, east and west. Our speaker lives on the east side, and her colleague lives on the west side. Could we have divided it north and south? Yes. But why would you when it fit the communities, the lay of the land, and the numbers so well as it did? Tina lives in Hulbert, Bill John around Eldon. Once again, what road, or better yet, what roads do you use to make any more sense in order to split this county? Folks, we didn't gerrymander anything, but by using that word, there was a shock value that was obtained. The definition of gerrymandering is dividing of a state, county into election districts so as to give one political party a majority in many districts while concentrating the voting strength of the other party into as few of districts as possible. And I do not feel the word was correctly used here. Our quotes were taken out of context and used against us in the public media. They sounded good for the papers, but they did not paint an accurate picture of what was taking place in the committee room for the last couple of years. I take offense to the executive branch even coming close to questioning me whether my decision is based on sound principle and what is best for the Cherokee people I represent. If I was not putting their interests first, I would want to open a landfill without doing an environmental study first. Need I say more? The executive branch submitted a set of guiding principles they wanted us to adopt. We didn't adopt them. End of story. We, as elected officials and adults, were following our own guiding principles. The Cherokee people voted for us into office to adopt the laws of this nation. Did we mean anything personal against the executive branch? No. We simply felt we were doing the job given to us by the Constitution and doing a good job indeed. As a matter of fact, I personally didn't think number 3 and number 7 on his guiding principles could be legislated. Number 3 involved endeavoring to gain greater participation in the electoral process for the voters and candidates. Folks, this is called bipartisan voter engagement, and if I knew the way to do this, I would be rich. Number 7 promotes cooperation among elected officials, and I learned all early on, I cannot legislate 2 people to get along with each other. I can't do it, folks. The Election Commission and the office needs time to determine voting precincts and inform voters where to vote. The executive branch has just appointed its 2 commissioners. They need to be sworn in, so the 4 appointed commissioners can select a 5th. As it stands, they will have 2.5 years to educate the people. Plenty of time to not only hold community meetings, but to inform all our voters and non-voters of their districts. Budget time is up on us, and we can appropriate money to this task and have ample time to do the Cherokee people right. I heard one of the reasons for the veto in '07 was it was being implemented too close to election time. Now it's being done too early. No, I do believe now is the proper time. The veto message sent to this council states, one of the principles that drives me in this process is my duty to ensure the laws do not unfairly disenfranchise voters. The definition of enfranchise is to deprive the rights of citizenship, especially to vote. Who is depriving anyone of the right to vote? The only people I hear using this term in reference to the nation at this time is the freedmen, and I assure you the executive branch isn't part of that group. Going from 9 districts to 15 isn't nearly as radical as going from 9 districts to 3. Do the math. If we go to 3, why don't we say to heck with it all and go back to how it was originally done? The top 15 vote getters in the entire 14-county jurisdictional area are your counselors.
Thank you, Ms. Fishing Hog. Ms. Coates.
I enter into this, into contemplation of this question with, not with antagonism toward anyone, either the administrative branch or the council itself. I have a great deal of respect for this body, and we were speaking earlier before the meeting about the ability to work with each other that this council has demonstrated. And I hope that the ability that we have to work with each other would also extend to our ability to work with the administration on this. I have listened to the debate on this, and I hear excellent points on both sides. To me, it's just not that cut and dried to for me to take myself into sort of an antagonistic place on this debate. I am wrestling with it at this moment, and it's a thing where I don't have a dog in this fight, perhaps. That's been my feeling about it, in that it doesn't impact me in my representation of my particular constituency. And I remember saying to another counselor at the beginning of this entire debate that there was some sense on my part that I should just abstain from any of the votes, and I haven't contributed much to the discussion for that reason. But the fact is, I have contributed to the votes. I have participated to the votes. There seems to have been some pretty good degree of consensus among most of the council on many of the questions. And so whether I did or did not vote hasn't mattered much of the time. It's likely to matter tonight. And so I'm wondering, is this the moment to abstain? And clearly it isn't. when I have in fact been participating all along. I think that would be a cowardly way out. But again, I wrestle with the question about do I have an interest here? Do my constituents have an interest here? Is it appropriate for me to be taking a vote on this point? And I have to say that the thing that sways me is not only do I represent a constituency, but I also represent a national interest. And so the arguments on that point that I have listened to tonight are carrying a lot of weight with me, I find, as it turns out. And I think I'm going to be of the opinion that our national interest calls us back to the table on this one, calls us back to a really working with the administration much more closely perhaps. And I know that this has been a process that has gone on for years, predating this council, to earlier councils. But if the type of discussion that was engaged in for only a short time before this meeting is one that could be engaged in further, because I don't think we really have as a body, with this body, that is, with this administration. I think that would be something that I would want to pursue first, probably, before taking this action finally. So those are my thoughts. This is what I'm wrestling with. I just say this is why I'm going to go ahead and vote on this, even though it doesn't directly impact me or my constituents, but I do hear the argument that it does impact my nation, and it will be a difficult vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coates. Mr. Hoskin?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will vote to override the veto. I feel very confident that we've passed a quality piece of legislation. The chief, in his veto message, raised a number of points, and he raised one additional one this evening that I think really drives what the difference is here. I think the chief has a philosophical difference with the majority of this council as to how the council ought to be organized under the Constitution. The majority of this body, I believe, feels that it should be 15 seats, one person per seat, and of course with 2 at-large members. The chief clearly would like a smaller number. I don't think that's the direction we ought to go towards. Fortunately, when it comes to matters of differences of philosophy, the courts aren't going to enter into that. It's up to us to determine what philosophically ought to drive redistricting, and I think we've said loud and clear that it ought to be one person per district, and it ought to be 15 districts. So I think the council should carry the day on that. I feel like that we will carry the day on that. So I think philosophical differences are the biggest dividing point between the branches at this time. The chief does raise the constitutional issue. The chief asserts that the redistricting map is unconstitutional. If we override this evening, the administration, the Attorney General, will have to zealously stand before the courts, perhaps, if it's challenged, and argue that, in fact, it is constitutional. And they'll certainly run across the chief's cited case, Brown versus Thompson, which does, I think, stand for the proposition that 10% deviation was found to be constitutional. Additional research will disclose additional cases, which actually stand for the proposition that an even wider deviation has been found to be constitutional. That is the argument that our Attorney General will stand and deliver to the courts, and I think it'll be one that they will deliver successfully if this redistricting plan is challenged on the constitutional basis. I think our courts will also have an opportunity to decide whether they are strictly bound by the federal court cases in this area of the law, or whether they can seize the opportunity to develop Cherokee Nation law, whether they can say, you know, we'll let the federal court decisions inform our decision, but we'll decide. We will decide, our Cherokee courts will decide what Article 6, Section 3 means by reasonably equal division of citizenship among the districts. I think that our courts will take into account that We faced as a legislative body a challenge of trying to determine not only how many Cherokee citizens we have, but where do they live. You know, the United States of America has had a couple of hundred years to come up with a method of determining where citizens live, how many citizens we have. We've had a considerably shorter time. We face considerably steeper obstacles to figure out where Cherokees live and how many Cherokees there are. And I think with the technology that we had available, and in light of the inherent limitations on us to determine our citizenship, we've done a fine job of determining how many Cherokees there are and where they lived, and we came up with a map that I believe effectuates Article 6, Section 3, that we've afforded a reasonably equal division of citizenship. So I do think that it will withstand constitutional scrutiny. I also think that the chief gets it wrong when he says that we gerrymandered. I agree with Councilor Fishinghawk's assessment. You know, to that I would add that I think the chief took comments out of context. I think that no one could read our legislative record and come away with the idea that we gerrymandered, could come away with the idea that we divvied up these seats to protect our interests. You look at the entire record, we tried to balance two things. One is to make sure that we effectuated Article 6, Section 3, a reasonably equal division of citizenship, one person, one vote. We also had to look at historic boundaries. We had to look at the unique characteristics of each part of the Cherokee Nation. And those, Madam Speaker, are acceptable things for a legislative body to look at. And so for that reason, I don't think the gerrymander argument withstands any scrutiny at all. And then I can't say it any better than Councilor Fishinghawk did. We're darned if we do, darned if we don't, as far as the timing of our legislation. If we do it too close to the election, well, it's too close to the election. If we do it too far from the election, well, it's too far from the election. The fact is, the experts have told us, and by the experts I mean the folks at the Election Commission and other folks that have dealt with this issue, they've told us that you should act now. And we acted with, I think, dispatch, but we also approached it deliberately. We took our time. We opened our doors to the administration. And now at the 11th hour, the administration wants to come and have additional discussions. Those discussions would have been wonderful months ago. Any number of meetings that we had, they would have been welcome. But they simply didn't occur. But that aside, I do think that this plan will meet constitutional scrutiny, and I hope, Madam Speaker, that you'll join me in overriding the veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskin. Ms. Cowan-Watts?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the utmost respect for the administration and for this body, and I have good intentions in coming here tonight, because what wasn't mentioned was Councilman Garvin and I have here struggled alone together for over 3 years in the battle for proper reapportionment. There's a case that was in front of the Cherokee Nation, which at the time was the Justice Appeals Tribunal, which is now our Supreme Court, that Nick Lay brought, where proper reapportionment was done before the, I believe, 12 years that it's called for under the Constitution. So we know we've been suffering for about 5 years under improper reapportionment at the Cherokee Nation, where both Mays County and Adair County had less Cherokee tribal citizens than both of our communities. And I serve Rogers County, and then, of course, Wagner and Muskogee County. Thank you. Our two communities have been suffering because we lacked adequate representation under the current methods of apportionment and districting. And when Councilman Garvin and I sat down and struggled with this last term, we couldn't find a political solution in a timely manner in order to address the redistricting and reapportionment and give Cherokee citizens an adequate amount of time in order to understand what their new district might look like in order to vote in a fashion. So we had those interests in mind when we pulled out the last time, and we've been waiting patiently for this term to begin in order to aggressively move forward with proper reapportionment, and then with the new Constitution redistricting. With the language of the Constitution that was adopted in 2003, we both felt very strongly that the Cherokee people, the nation, was not served by a lawsuit which simply only addressed reapportionment and kept the current redistricting. We felt like the Cherokee Constitution called very clearly for 15 separate and somewhat equal districts, however you define equal. And so we pursued those. And so over 3 years, we've finally come to this culmination. So these dialogues, this discussion is not new to me, as it has been stated tonight. It's not new to this body, and it's not new to my community. I have written numerous editorials. I have sought out personal input from opinion leaders in my community and the normal grandma and grandpa that might be served by those election outcomes. I have also sought input at our various community meetings, and we hold monthly community meetings in Rogers County. That's over the past 3 years. This is not new dialogue. I think if you asked my constituents, they would probably tell you that I should have just sued for reapportionment and got our 2 council people, because that would have served what they felt was their best interest. But again, I looked at the oath I took for this office and what would serve the Cherokee Nation people best, and I felt like that was 15 separate and as equal as we could get it, with reasonable boundaries that I thought the common person, the common Cherokee person could understand. And that's how we've gotten to this point, and why I will be supporting the override of the chief's veto. Because when it comes down to it, I don't want to just take, and some people have insinuated, I don't want to take a representative from either Adair or Mays County. That would be the politically expedient way to address the issue. And I'm sure I would get reelected in Rogers County again if I got them another representative. That would be the way to do it. But for 3 years, we have been working together and struggling against the 2 representative seats in order to find a solution, not in the court system, but through negotiations with both internally within our body as well as externally with the administration, in order to look at what is best for the Cherokee people. So I would appreciate my colleagues' support tonight in looking for the solution I think we found together over the last 3 years, and I appreciate the patience of many of you that you've taken the time to look at this issue and to work together to find a way to have 15 equal districts. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Callan Watts. Any other? Ms. Tanya Glory Jordan.
This has been a process that took place long before I got on the council. I know from our conversations in committee, it has been at least a minimum of a 3-year process, and this is the second time that it's been vetoed, that the council's work has been vetoed by Chief Smith. As I understand the Constitution, this is a constitutionally mandated job given to the council. This council has labored for at least 10 months. We've fought back and forth. We've went over probably, I don't know how many maps, maybe 20, 25, 30 maps. We did finally, in the end, come together, and probably this is the first time that this council actually has come together on any particular issue. I believe this passed out of committee 17-0. I don't think anyone looking from the outside in is going to think that we did a perfect job. I'm not sure anybody sitting here thinks that this is a perfect job, but it is the best job that we can do. We're going to have to do this every 20 years, and I think this is 3 or 4 years overdue already. I don't know when's going to be the perfect time to pass it. I think it's tonight. I think it's now. I think we need to get this issue behind us, and we need to move on to other Cherokee Nation work. I signed on as a counselor to help Cherokee people. I'm going to continue helping Cherokee people no matter what the boundary lines are, and I think everybody sitting in these seats are planning to do the same thing. These boundary lines are not going to create little districts that we're going to protect like warriors. We're still going to look at the overall picture. I will represent a district, I think, that will be called Cherokee West. But I'm also going to represent Cherokee East. I'm also going to represent Trail Tiers North, Trail Tiers South, Delaware 1, Delaware 2. I plan to represent all the districts in each of my votes. I would ask each of you on the council tonight to join with me in overriding this veto, and let's get on to other issues.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Mr. Baker, Bill John Baker.
Yes, we have struggled long and hard with this issue. I always thought I needed a third seat and wished I could have got it, but it wasn't long before it appeared that was not going to take place. And Chief, for whatever it's worth, I proposed 5 districts and got shot down pretty quick. There is disparity, but there's a reason. And the main reason is Curtis was good enough to give up northern Cherokee County so that we could keep Cherokee County the way it's always been. Traditionally, socially, economically, and I would rather represent a few more people in Cherokee County, and I think I'll do them justice, than to have them go to Delaware County where they're not accustomed to. They don't shop there, they don't pay taxes there, they don't do anything. And so I pray that the courts, which apparently that's probably where it's going, will see the justice and the wisdom in having a few districts that are a little larger so that people can stay with their families and stay where they're accustomed to doing business and doing socializing and not ship them in an opposite direction. So I will be voting to override, but I think every counselor here can tell you that I serve their people, many individually, and as a whole, I try to look at the needs of the Cherokee people wherever they are. And I've been to probably as many community meetings outside of Cherokee County as I've gone to Cherokee County to. Because, I mean, I just up at Harley's, I've been to several of Joe's, I've been to several up at Chuck's, I've been to Salisaw, and every place I meet Cherokees that have needs that maybe they'll talk to me and they won't talk to somebody else. But I think that this isn't perfect, but I think it's the best that we can come up with, and administration wasn't charged with it, the council was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Any other comments? Yes, Ms. Fulbright.
Well, I will be voting to override. And I generally agree with the chief, but I disagree with him on this. I have the nation as a whole as my main interest, what's best for them. But I do think smaller is better. And while I've been on the council, I have received hundreds of calls from people who need individual attention. And I just don't like the idea of being so big that when you get a call from someone, they don't know you, you don't know them, and I like personal attention. I don't care if it's schools or council districts. I just think smaller is better, and I am not a person that just worries about what is best for Sequoyah County. I've been to community meetings all over, and I have tried to help the other counties, the other districts, if they came to me wanting something, Joe, Jody, anybody that asks. And it's for what's the best for the whole group and for all the Cherokee Nation, and we just kind of disagree on how to get there. And I do think the 15 smaller districts are better. We looked at them every way. We looked at so many different maps you cannot believe, and we thought keeping
communities intact and dividing by major highways, rivers, waterways, to keep our communities and the community life together. And that's the way I feel about it, and I will have to vote to override. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fulbright. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Mr. Garvin.
I think everything's been said, but I'll comment. I know the Choctaw Nation has 12 councilmen. Guess how many districts? 12 districts. In the state of Oklahoma, I don't know how many districts there are, but we all have one representative. In the United States, we all have one federal representative. And you come down to Cherokee Nation, about 80% have 2 representatives, and the 20% has 1 representative. How can you figure that would be fair ever? That's a train wreck. I don't know where it came from, but what we tried to do is squeeze 15 council people into 15 areas, into 9 areas. 15 was squeezed into 9. And the administration's talking 5 districts. Well, that would really be a train wreck. You'd have people coming from Nycut to Muskogee to talk to their councilman. And the price of gasoline is now and what it's going to be, they'd never be able to talk to their council people personally. They might get on the telephone or something, but personally, everybody knows how I'm going to vote on this issue. I've been fighting this for years and years and years, and we almost did it a year and a half ago, and we had one person wearing those flip-flops, and we didn't make it. I don't call any names, but I hope nobody's wearing them tonight, because we had 15 good votes, and surely they won't change their minds. But anyway, if they do, well, that's good too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garvin. Yes, Mr. Crittenden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As Don said, I think most everything's been said in support of our efforts. We didn't take our duty lightly. We worked hard this term, and we worked last term. And I certainly hope that we're actually under the 99 Constitution. In my heart, I'm not 100% certain, but we're carrying on like we are. And I think we have done the work, and we was as fair as we could be. We had some common values, common ground in this, and we worked together good, I think. And I think at this point in time, we just need to get her done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crittenden. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
I have my 1 minute.
You have 1 minute left. I knew you'd save that for rebuttal.
Thank you. I want to thank the vast majority of the council this evening for addressing this issue on philosophical and policy grounds rather than personal attacks. That speaks well of our council. Mr. Garvin, you taught our government history, I assume, but there's 50 states and they have senates. And those senators, 2 senators from each state, represent the entire state. And that is the alternative to a House of Representatives. And that's really one of the alternatives to view tonight. Does that lend itself to the national interest, a common interest among everybody within that political geographical area? And that's what I've asked the council to consider. Does it attend to our national interest better than small districts? Apparently it has for the United States, because the Senate operates that way. And I think Councilman Soap really put a great perspective on the discussion tonight. We have been looking from the legislator's view as to his voting district. Perhaps we need to actually look from the constituent or the voter's perspective. Do we put ourselves in their position and say, rather than to turn to one person that is my district representative, do I have the opportunity to turn to 2 or 3 or others as those that I have voted for and put in office and represents me? It creates a greater empowerment, a greater access to our government. If our voters, our people, have more than one in their district to turn to. And that's been the great success to a great degree of our council. Ultimately, you're right, Councilman Hoskins. The court will not look at our philosophical differences. I certainly take issue with your comments that of our option for participation. I still don't believe our constituents really understand this issue. It's not been breached to them. But for our courts, we'll decide this. The ultimate question, does 160 equal 100? When you have one district that represents 160 for another district that represents 100, how can that be regionally equitably apportioned? So I ask for your consideration to sustain this veto and let us go back to the drawing board and find something that we all can agree on fits the needs of the Cherokee people today and tomorrow. Wodo.
Thank you, Chief Smith, for your participation this evening. Does anyone else have any comments? Ms. Countwell? Question's been called. The motion is to override the veto. It takes 2/3 to override, which means we need 12 votes to override. And it is a legislative act, so it'll be roll call.
Yes to override.
Madam Speaker.
Yes is to override.
Kara Cowan-Watts,
Yes.
Bill Anglin,
No.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishinghawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright,
Yes.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Tina Glory Jordan,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
No.
Chris Tope,
No.
David Thornton.
Yes.
We have 13 yes and 4 no.
13 yes, 4 no. Motion to override carries. Thanks, everyone, for your time, your opinions. It was a good deliberative process, and I think we came up with some good legislation. Next order of business are committee reports. The Housing Authority, David Sutherland.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I got a brief report this evening. The Housing Authority's regular board meeting will be August 19th, a week from tomorrow evening, in the Allen Hogner Administration Building Conference Room. The meeting begins at 5:30. The board's going to discuss a policy issue regarding non-Indians in our low-rent apartments. From time to time, we have an Indian and a non-Indian that live in the apartment, and for some reason, be it death or some other reason, the Indian passes away, leaving the non-Indian in our unit. Our current policy doesn't address what action we take, but the federal regulations do state that we're supposed to serve tribal members of federally recognized tribes. So we need some guidance on that. At last month's meeting, the board approved assigning the Title VI mortgage notes and mortgages to the nation. The tribe took out the Title VI loan back in 2002. Excuse me, and with the Housing Authority signing the notes and mortgages to the tribe will be solely responsible to the creditor. Several groups here at the nation have been working to develop a consistent policy on our background checks for housing applicants. The Housing Authority, we've been obtaining background checks for years, primarily because we put people in cluster sites into low-rent apartments, and we need to know what kind of background these folks have. That doesn't mean that we need the same background check on somebody that's getting rehab or mortgage assistance or those types of programs, as opposed to putting folks into cluster site apartments. So I think we recognize that fact. We need a consistent policy for all the housing groups, or all the groups that are administering housing, and we should come up with something in the next few weeks. That's my report for the evening. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Sutherland? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next report is David Stewart, Cherokee Nation Enterprises. Good evening, Mr. Stewart.
Good evening.
Despite a challenging economy, we continue to have very good financial results. Our net income for June is in excess of $10 million, which was on target with budget and very similar to last year. We're seeing a lot of challenging areas around the country in gaming. We continue to survive and do well, and I think it says very well for our employees that are doing an excellent job of treating our customers right. We're preparing for the opening of West Siloam in mid-November and Catoosa following in mid-December. It presents a tremendous challenge in terms of hiring enough people to do the job for us. Our current statistics of Cherokee employment is right at 60%, total Native employment at 72%. And it does present challenges as we try to hire between 700 and 800 people in the next 90 to 120 days. So I would encourage you, if you have Cherokees that are interested in employment, we will have job fairs, and we've dedicated a lot of time and effort internally to process those and get our Cherokee people in here and provide them good jobs. So we'd appreciate your help. We're going to do everything that we can to keep those percentages in those ranges, but it does present challenge, you know, as business does not stop. It continues, and we will have to fill those jobs. So I appreciate your help in that area. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about
Any questions? Yes, Ms. Fishinghawks.
In my official capacity as an elected tribal councilor of the Cherokee Nation, I made a couple of requests through our Government Records Act. I was informed in doing so that some internal emails were generated through C&E. I've talked to Mr. Sean Slayton about it. I would like a copy of these internal emails that I was informed of.
Okay. I'll check into that.
Any other questions, concerns, requests? Dr. Cobb.
Did you, the number of new hires you're looking at over the next few months, how many exactly did you say?
700 to 800.
Is that spread out over most of the
It's about equal between West Siloam and Catoosa. Okay, because in West Siloam we're growing the casino much more than we are in Catoosa, and we have all the food and beverage. So we really need, really runs the entire range of employees at both places.
When you completed this hiring process, what would be your total number of employees?
It will be right at 4,000.
Great.
So
wonderful.
we're doing a great job, and evidenced by our recent corporate summits, we have a lot of employees very engaged in our business, and it's very exciting to see. So,
thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you.
Cherokee Nation Industries, Brian Collins. Good evening, Mr. Collins.
Good evening. I have a brief report tonight. Cherokee Nation Industries, we are still growing employment-wise to meet the contract needs that we have. Current employment is 392 with a 83% Cherokee employment base. I reported on June results last month. July results aren't going to be finished tabulated until tomorrow, so I don't have any of the current financials for you. We have an open house set for August 21st. I know we sent invitations out. I hope that each of you have received those. And we are basically celebrating the new opening of the Walmart facility that we purchased and remodeled in what we call our Cherokee South, or Building 4 in Stillwell. And I hope all of you can come from 11 to 1 and enjoy that time with us and the employees. Just a few days ago, I received notification of that Cherokee Nation Industries is a recipient of the Oklahoma Governor's Manufacturing Leadership Award. Each year, Governor Brad Henry bestows awards on manufacturers to recognize them for setting standards in Oklahoma and in the nation. Each of the award-winning companies must be progressive, forward-thinking, and willing to adapt to change to become more successful in their marketplace. They represent the enormous potential available in Oklahoma and take a leadership role in promoting the importance of doing business in and from our state. The awards are an awards committee made up of the manufacturing professionals selects the winners from a long list of nominees, and I'm happy to say that Cherokee Nation Industries will be receiving this award on September 23rd. And I will get out some additional information for those that might want to go and participate in this. It'd be in Tulsa. So that is something we're very proud of, and like I say, we just received that information in the last couple of days. Our next board meeting is September 29th in Tulsa at 2 o'clock, and that completes my briefing.
Any questions? Any questions for Mr. Collins? No? Thank you, and congratulations. Cherokee Nation Business, Brad Carson.
Good evening, Madam Speaker. I, too, will be mercifully brief. An update on the landfill. We are in the process of beginning construction on that project with the hope of opening it sometimes in the late fall. We're adding some staff to that as well and continuing to make sure that the coordination is done so that the landfill will be a source of pride for the Cherokee Nation and for the citizens of Adair County. And it's been a pleasure working with particularly Mr. Crittenden and Ms. Fishinghawk, who obviously have a particularly vested interest in that, but others as well, Ms. Fulbright and others who have key interests in the landfill. And so I'm always happy to answer questions about that issue, and people can feel free to call me to discuss what's going on there as well. Of course, there is an environmental study ongoing, as was requested by this council. We've worked closely with several members of the council in putting that proposal together, and while I don't have a date certain for its completion, it should be ready to be unveiled to this council and to the people of the Cherokee Nation sometime in the next few weeks. There are a number of acquisition opportunities going on as well in aerospace and healthcare, which we hope to have announced by the end of the fiscal year. Things I think will be pleasing to several of the folks on this council who we've worked with. And finally, of course, are the many yet tedious activities necessary to coordinate the ever-growing Cherokee business activities, from budgeting, from working on our loan agreements and things that I give more detailed reports. The Baker and Thornton reports, of course, which occur each month at the E&F committee and other things like that. So it is a busy time as we enter the new fiscal year. And I'd be happy to answer questions, Madam Speaker, at this time.
Any questions? Yes, Ms. Fishinghawk.
Yeah, a couple. I have talked to Dina about perhaps you all putting something in the newspapers explaining to the people of Adair County what steps we're taking. We're at in the process of opening the landfill.
Yes, that is on my plate, Dina's request to me to do that, and I would imagine we will proceed to do that, and we'll work with you to make sure the right thing is put into the Democrat Journal and perhaps the Westville paper, too.
Okay, my second question. How's it going with Facet?
It's going well with Facet. You know, as we have talked about in matters that may or may not be known to everyone in the room, we are working closely with them with a number of proposals that both further our joint interest in this room in economic development, while also being good stewards of the Cherokee dollars. So we're working with them, and we're in weekly contact, if not more frequent than that, with Facet. So I know that's a key priority for both you and Mr. Crittenden, and we are working to make that happen.
I wouldn't be so concerned, but if you go down there and go through the plant, you will see identifiable Cherokees.
Indeed, I have been the tour of the plant not long ago, and I know it is a great employer. A great employer there. And so we know at C&B, and we appreciate the council's interest in it, and I can assure you it is a top priority for us to see that new jobs be brought to Stillwell and that those existing jobs be maintained.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Carson? No, but thank you for being mercifully brief.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Next order of business is old business, an act amending the criminal code requiring other requirements, sex offender registration. Ms. Cowan-Watts, did you?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, there's two accompanying acts with amendments that need to go with this piece of legislation. And just to make sure that the body understands too, we'll need to pass all 3 acts no later than the October council meeting in order to meet Adam Walsh Act compliance with the timetable set. So at this time, I'd like to table this particular act to the September council meeting in case it might come forward at that time.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second to table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next order of business is new business. We're going to have a swearing in of the principal chiefs appointed election commissioners. Those are Patsy Morton and Curtis Rohr. The council swore their 2 appointed officials in recently, and these are 2 that the principal chief has appointed, and then those 4 will appoint a 5th commissioner. And Justice Wilcoxon is here to swear in, to perform the swearing in of Mrs. Morton and Mr. Rohr. Mr. Wilcoxon, do you want to do those together or individually?
Madam Speaker, I think that since we just had 2, I'll do them separately.
Okay, it's fine. Mrs. Morton, ladies first.
Neil, would you come down and hold the Bible for your wife? It'd be a nice touch.
How are you?
All right.
Why did you do that?
Place your left hand on the Bible and place your right hand. If you would repeat after me.
I,
State your name.
Patsy Lynn Eads Morton,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear, affirm,
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of Election Commissioner of the Cherokee Nation
of Election Commissioner of the Cherokee Nation,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the constitutions of the Cherokee Nation and the United States of America.
the constitutions of the Cherokee Nation and the United States of America.
I swear or affirm further
I swear or affirm further
that I will do everything within my power
that I will do everything within my power
to promote the culture, heritage, and traditions of the Cherokee Nation.
to promote the culture, the
Heritage.
traditions, and the heritage of the Cherokee Nation.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So I asked if I am allowed to say anything. It'll be very short. The last time, I was the last one put on the commission, and I don't know what went on before, but before the commission elected all of its officers in 3 different times, my punishment was to be chairman. And it was quite an experience. And I think that we will do well this time because we have some people that know more than I, and I've been through the fire with it, and so has Martha. And we may not all agree, but we will do, to the best of our ability, the things that will have us having a good election, if that can be said for Cherokees. I want to say one more thing. My opinion is my own, and I don't know if people know, even Jody or Joe, that I come from a big batch of Rosses in Adair County. My great-grandfather was John Roten Ross. He had 8 children, and he had a wife that raised all of them on the hills up at Elm Grove. And I was a child when there was no Cherokee Nation. And some of you may be that age. And we didn't have a Cherokee Nation for quite a while. And I have been, although my mother was a white woman, I have been in the Cherokee Nation
in my community. And I remember being so poor that the government came in, I'll hurry, and bring food and shoes and butcher the cows and the hogs, and people took them home. And that's where I come from. And I hope I can uphold the tradition of my great-grandfather who served on the Council of Cherokee Nation. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rohr, Curtis Rohr.
Curtis, did you bring any family members with you or friends or?
What about my council?
Anybody you want.
Carol Levine for you. This one?
Raise your right hand and repeat after me as soon as I get my glasses on.
Okay.
I, state your name,
Curtis Rohr,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of Election Commissioner of the Cherokee Nation
of Election Commissioner of the Cherokee Nation
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the constitutions of the Cherokee Nation and the United States of America.
the Constitution of the Cherokee Nation of the United States of America.
I swear or affirm further
I swear and affirm further
that I will do everything within my power
that I will do everything within my power
to promote the culture, heritage, and traditions
to promote the culture, heritage, and tradition
of the Cherokee Nation.
of the Cherokee Nation.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'd just like to say that this will be a new experience for me, but I certainly appreciate the confidence and the opportunity to serve the Cherokees. In 1859, I had two great-grandfathers that served on the Senate, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Garvin.
I want to point out that Justice Wilcoxon's from the Three Rivers District over in the state. Will it be?
Thank you for your time and traveling all that distance, Mr. Wilcoxon. Please do.
Appreciate an opportunity to come before the Cherokee Nation. You all know I've been around here a long time, but there really isn't much more important than serving on the Election Commission. It's a tough job. I've been through a number of contested Cherokee elections, and it really is a good thing when you have a good, steady commission. And I know these people will do a very good job and appreciate their service. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Morton and Mr. Rohr, we have an oath of office for you to sign before you leave, please. Justice Wilcoxon, have you signed? No, he hasn't signed. If you don't mind also. Next order of business is new business. Item 2 through 4 are grant applications that were approved in committee unanimously. And Mr. Buzzard, do you want to take those 3 items?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to, if there's no objections, I'd like to do items 2 through 4 in total, since they were passed unanimously out of committee.
Yes.
I'll
Is
read.
there any objection to taking these in toto? No.
I'll read each resolution, and then we'll vote them in toto, okay? Number 1, a resolution authorizing Cherokee Nation Child Care and Development to submit an application for participation in statewide early childhood pilot projects. There is a match. The minimum is $135,582, and it could go to $271,164. This range is also dependent on funding from available sources outside the Cherokee Nation, which would be from private funding sources. The second application is resolution authorizing the Food Distribution Program to submit an application for funding to the United States Department of Agriculture. There also is a match, a Cherokee Nation match of $746,361 with an in-kind match of $34,167. The other resolution, a resolution authorizing the Family Assistance Department to submit an application to the United States Department of Health and Human Services for FY 2009 funding for low-income home energy assistance program. There's no match for this resolution. I put those in the form of a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on any of these three items? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries for items 2, 3, and 4. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing a grant application to the Indian Health Service. Councilor Cobb.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to go on record as having Counselor and Co-Chair of Health, Counselor Fulbright, is actually co-sponsor on this resolution too. This is a grant application to Indian Health Service for modernization of patient health record systems, and I'd move for approval.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Motion. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 6 is a resolution granting an easement right for right-of-way on trust land in Adair County. Mr. Crittenden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This resolution will provide driveway access to Bonnie Jones, and it says that Cherokee Nation waives compensation for the driveway. This driveway has been in existence for about 40 years, and it's into his residence. It's been there many years, and there's also multiple residences in there. Some of his children have moved in there. So it's necessary and needed, and I think Realty is in favor of this. We passed it out of committee, and I'd move for approval.
Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Items 7 through 12 are nominations and renominations to commissions and boards, and those passed unanimously out of committee. And Mr. Hoskin, would you please present these for approval?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, are we considering these in toto?
Yes.
Very good.
If there's no objection, we'll consider these in toto.
Very good. Madam Speaker, item number 7 is a resolution confirming the renomination of Letitia Stevenson Pablo as board member of Cherokee Nation Comprehensive Care Agency Board of Directors. Item 8, a resolution confirming the renomination of Sharon Swepston as board member of Cherokee Nation Comprehensive Care Agency Board of Directors. Item 9, a resolution confirming the nomination of Roberta Gibson as a board member of the Cherokee Nation Sequoia High School Board of Education. Item 10, a resolution confirming the nomination of Laura Lee Smiley as a board member of the Economic Development Trust Authority Board of Directors. Item 11, a resolution confirming the renomination of Jim Hummingbird as a commissioner of the Cherokee Nation Tax Commission. And finally, item number 12, a resolution confirming the nomination of Marty Matlock as a board member of the Cherokee Nation Environmental Protection Commission. Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval of those items.
Good.
Moved in second to approve items 7 through 12 in toto. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries on items 7 through 12. Item 13 is the FY 2008 budget modification number 10. Mr. Baker.
Yes, Madam Speaker. This budget modification includes $150,000 for additional funds for the renovation of Marcoma Gymnasium. $50,000 of this comes from the reserve fund, an additional $100,000 from the general fund. There's also a $202,000 charged to indirect cost renewal to increase the reserve for bad debts from several tribal loan funds, and this comes from the general fund. It also increased as a $1,422,000 additional expenditures for environmental health projects funded by the Indian Health Service. There's a $291,000 decrease in the housing plan for modernization funds due to this amount projected not to be spent by the end of the fiscal year. In addition, the housing has an additional $66,000 for salaries and fringes covered under the housing plan, and these are funded by NAHASDA. This is a net increase of over $1.5 million to our annual budget for annual budget being over $481 million, and I would like to move for its approval.
Madam Chairman,
That's Mr. Baker.
I'd like to second with a friendly amendment. There was this committee, or the Executive Finance Committee unanimously passed $5,000 to purchase air conditioners as the programs have run out and the heat hasn't stopped yet. And it was left off of this budget by mistake. And so I'd like to add the friendly of putting that back in the way it came out of committee.
Okay. I will accept that.
Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Jordan?
I do have a question. I don't know if there's anybody here from admin that can address it tonight. This bad debt reserve, are these debts already in default, or is this the creation of a bad debt reserve in anticipation we may have some losses?
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Baker, you want to respond?
It's my understanding, now I may not be totally correct on this, it's my understanding that these are loaned from various loan funds, that the debts have not been paid. So they're writing them off, although they're still pursuing collection. And the total amount is $202,000 from 8 different loan funds.
Well, a portion of this, $17,000 of it is for the employee loan fund. 35% of the emergency loan fund, are they writing off that much money? I mean, 35% of their loans?
We'll have to address administration. Thank you.
Mr. Baker?
Madam Chair, although we collect the money out of employee salaries, if they make a loan and quit, there's not a whole lot we can do with it.
Well, I wonder what legal efforts, maybe Diane Hammonds could address that. What legal efforts have been made to collect this $202,000?
Also, Ms. Jordan, Anna Knight is here from the Small Business.
I didn't see her up there, and I'm sorry. Y'all both may want to address that.
The bad debt reserve is just a reserve based on our past delinquencies, and we're actually getting ready, the trust authority board is getting ready to change how they reserve for bad debt. Right now, it's just based on past delinquencies. It's not necessarily charge-offs that we've written off. It's just based on delinquencies, an allowance is set up for doubtful accounts. So then as we charge them off, we charge to that reserve for bad debt accounts. So
Could you report on these specific loan programs in our next committee meeting? So maybe enlighten us a little bit. 35% is awful high. If you got a 35% loss on a loan program, we just need to shut that loan program down.
we very rarely make any more of those emergency loans, but those were the loans that we made for people that were having their utilities cut off or they were being foreclosed on. So it was a very high risk loan program.
So now we send those people to Norma, right? I saw her up there, so she must have left. Okay.
But yes, we certainly can.
Well, the question for the Attorney General, though, are we trying to collect these through legal means?
Some of them we are. We will institute litigation on those referrals that we get from the departments, including economic development, housing authority, and so I couldn't tell you without doing the research how many of those that we do have in litigation, how many we're pursuing. I know there are some, and I will say that we noticed a rise in those cases, a rise in mortgage foreclosures, a rise in bad debts, and with the economic recession, I believe we will probably see more. But I can give this
If you could report that in committee.
Yeah, that's $250,000.
Other questions? It is an act.
By acclamation.
By acclamation. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
I am going to oppose it because of the bad debt reserve. I feel compelled to do so until I know about the legal means it's been taken to collect that.
A no vote?
Yes.
Motion carries. Or roll call.
Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Tina Glory Jordan,
No.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
Chris Stowe,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Tara Cowan Watts,
Yes.
Bill Anglin,
Yes.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker, Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
Yes.
Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
No.
Jody Fishinghawk,
No.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright.
Yes.
14 yes and 3 no.
14 yes, 3 no, motion carries. Are there any announcements? Yes, Ms. Cowan Watts?
Thank you. September 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Will Rogers Memorial is the annual Rogers County Hog Fry. Everyone's invited. That's Saturday, September 20th from 10 a.m. to noon at the Will Rogers Memorial. We would love to have you guys come visit the Will Rogers Memorial, and it will debut the new Rogers County Community Choir, Cherokee Community Choir. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Yes, Mr. Garvin?
Only 3 days later, on the 23rd of September, we're having Indian tacos at the Grandview Indian Clinic here in Muskogee. 23rd.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a second. Now, Ms. Fulbright, I'm sorry.
Yes, Councilor Thornton and I are having a big community meeting at Salisaw on September the 30th, and everyone's invited, and we'd like for everybody to come that can.
Okay.
Fairgrounds.
Pardon?
Fairgrounds.
At the Fairgrounds building, yes. The Fairgrounds.
Okay. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned there.